I bet that the majority of us have all heard about the Titanic or possibly seen the movie Titanic. But did it have any truth to the actual story? The Titanic was said to be an unsinkable ship. However, the statement has proven to be false due to the fact it sunk based on historical events and evidence. The Titanic was a big part of history, and even though the movie had some significance, it was important to know the exact information. I have too watched the movie myself, but I wanted to know more information. So I did plenty of research to educate myself, and now all of you with this speech. I will go through the background of how the Titanic was created and the design of the ship, the consequences of the Titanic sinking, and the exploration of the ship today. The Titanic was the second of three huge and ever so luxurious ships built by the company by the name of White Star Line. It took the company 3 years to build. The project started on March 31st, 1909, in Belfast, Ireland. The Titanic, when completed, had been the largest movable object ever made. The ship was the forefront of technology during this era. The electrical system was remarkable, and it rivaled the electrical power plants in many cities. Much like a hotel has to use a lot of electricity to operate the lights, telephones, radiators, and elevators, the Titanic did as well. Jennifer Rosenberg stated in her article, "No 20 surprising facts about the Titanic," that the Titanic was 880.5 feet long, 90.5 feet wide, 170 feet high, and displaced 66,000 tons of water. That is almost as long as 8 Statues of Liberty laying on her side in a line. On April 2nd, 1912, the Titanic left shortly after sea trials for Southampton, England, where it obtained a crew and was loaded with its supplies. Jennifer also states in another of her articles, Sinking of the RMS Titanic, that the Titanic had to burn about 600 tons of coal each day to keep it powered. A team consisting of 176 men kept the fires ignited. It is estimated that more than 100 tons of coal was injected into the Atlantic each day. Aboard the Titanic were wealthy individuals. Among the famous people who died aboard the Titanic was John Jacob Astor, who was estimated to be worth over $2 billion in today's currency. Others aboard were Benjamin Graham, a mining heir, and Thomas Andrews, an engineer who oversaw the construction of the Titanic. Now that we have explored some of the background about the creation of the Titanic, let's talk a little bit about its design. The Titanic was built on a monumental scale and deemed unsinkable. Inside the ship contained luxuries and amenities for the first-class passengers, including Turkish baths, a swimming pool, a squash court, and even a dog kennel. There were restaurants aboard inspired by the famous Ritz in London. The ship also had 10 decks and featured oak paneling and bronze finishes. The first-class passengers had real apartments or rooms that resemble those of the best hotels. They contained all of the essential amenities and were decorated in different styles ranging from the Renaissance to the Empire style. The second and third classes weren't as nice, but provided a comfort that surpassed any comfort of any other ships. According to the author of the Titanic, the marine tragedy that sank the unsinkable, by Romain Parmenter, each class had its own dining rooms, excellent restaurants, as well as smoking rooms, lounges, and libraries. The Titanic's image shows it with 4 cream and black funnels. However, only 3 of the funnels released steam from the boilers. The other one was actually just for looks. Most suites in the first class had private bathrooms. The rest did not and had to share. According to the author of the Titanic 100th Anniversary Edition, A Night Remembered, by Stephanie L. Lanzerke, third class had to share 2 bathrooms with only 2 baths, with more than 700 passengers. She also stated the White Star Company that built the Titanic suggested cutting down the number of lifeboats from 48 to only 20. They said it would cut down on the cost, reducing the amount of clutter aboard the ship. The Titanic's design also contained many other safety elements, including 16 compartments that could be closed from the bridge to contain water in the event that the hull be breached. Amy Tinkerton, author of The Titanic Ship on the Encyclopedia Britannica, stated that although they were presumed to be watertight, the bulkheads were not capped at the top. The ship's builders claimed that 4 of the compartments could be flooded without endangering the ship's buoyancy. The design led many to claim that the Titanic was unsinkable. Based on a general semantics analysis of the RMS Titanic disaster by Martin H. Clevenson, another contributing factor to the Titanic's foundering was that the ship's builder used low-quality wrought iron rivets for the ship's metal plates. So when the Titanic hit the iceberg, the rivets were easily sheared off. Even though there were a lot of thought put into how the Titanic was made, it couldn't keep the ship from sinking. On the day of April 14th, the Titanic had been given warning that the treacherous icebergs were along their path. However, not all messages managed to make it to the top of the chain of command, and the lookout's only way of spotting the ice was to see it right in front of the ship. Jennifer Rosenberg stated in her article, 20 Surprising Facts About the Titanic, that from the time the lookouts sounded the alert of the iceberg, the officers were only given 37 seconds to react before the ship struck the iceberg. There were not enough lifeboats to save all 2,200 people on board, and most lifeboats weren't even filled to capacity. Only 705 people were saved, and if filled to capacity, 1,178 people could have been saved. The order of people loaded onto the lifeboats were women and children. People who didn't make it aboard a lifeboat reacted differently. Some grabbed objects they believed would float and jumped overboard. Others remained on board and claimed they wanted to die with dignity. The water was freezing, and anyone submerged for longer than a couple minutes froze to death. A commercial cable repair ship was sent from Halifax, Nova Scotia, in search for bodies. 328 bodies were found, but 119 of them were badly degraded and buried at sea. The official number of dead on the Titanic was 1,503 of the 2,208 on board. There were 705 survivors. Majority of the bodies that were found were buried in Nova Scotia and not labeled with names because they were unidentified. There was a lot of devastation to the sinking, but researchers wanted to see for themselves what remains on the sea floor. They also wanted to see just what exactly happened. It took Dr. Robert Ballard, an American oceanographer, 73 years to discover the wreckage on September 1st, 1985. The ship the ship's remains on the protected ocean's floor. Amy Tinkerton, who wrote The Titanic Ship on Encyclopedia Britannica, wrote about how a camera was used on the expeditions. A long gash was characteristic of the wreck, but instead small gashes that led to the fracturing along the boat's seams of the hull's plates, which allowed the water to fill the ship. Thousands of artifacts have been recovered from the wreckage, including jewelry and pieces of the ship itself. Today, we learned the background of how the Titanic was created, the design of the ship, the consequences of the Titanic sinking, and the exploration of the ship today. The Titanic was said to be an unwreckable ship. However, this statement has proven to be false due to the fact it sunk, based on historical events and research. Remember when I said there is more information besides that of the movie about the Titanic that took years of research and evidence? I hope you know some additional information about a very important topic in history, the Titanic.